Greetings, my fellow artists. Maybe you've been outside noticing how beautiful it is. Everything's growing and you want to capture that with your art. Well, I've got a pretty cool project for you today. We're going to be blowing things away. Blowing? I think I meant to say growing there, didn't I? Wait a second. Let's check what materials you're going to need. You're going to need some paper. I would recommend some cardstock, watercolor paper, although that does have a tooth to it. You want some kind of thicker paper. Printer paper just might not be able to stand up to what we're going to do today because you're going to need to get some paint ready, okay? This is going to take a little bit of preparation. I've got a nice green mixed up here, and I did about 50% paint, 50% water. This is tempera paint, and it washes pretty well. So if I spill it all over myself, my mom's not going to freak out. Although she might be a little bit angry that she has to do another wash. Anyway, you do want to get that ready. So if you don't have the paint part ready yet, get your paper, get your paint. Don't forget a cup of just clean water. Oh, and a paper towel. And hey, wait! One last thing you're going to need to make this a success, a straw. Now do you see why I was confused? Okay, go get your materials, and then I'm going to really blow you away. Are you ready? Fantastic. Let's get organized. So I said to mix up this paint like this because you want something that's not too viscous. Now, an alternative to this paint might be something like India ink that actually work really well, but not all of you may have that. So any paint really could do, but you do want it to be able to sort of drip and be a bit liquidy. You want it to flow. So you're looking for more fluidity than viscosity. Okay, once you have that mixed, it's time to plant a seed, because that's how all things start to grow. There's that word grow again. So I'm going to take a nice generous scoop of liquid paint and just drop it on here as a big glob, making sure it's nice and liquidy. All great things start small, don't they? But with a little bit of wind, we can send them on their way. You can point this in different directions and different angles. You can use different forces of air. Oh, I should just show you. Check this out. And it begins. You will start to blow at that droplet and you will see it start to grow. You will find that blowing at different strengths causes different things to happen. Splits of branches, branches growing out faster or thicker or thinner. Let's try some other things. Marvel as an amazing tree starts to grow right before your very eyes. In areas where you want there to be a larger branch or more happening, you can take a little bit more liquid paint and pop it down right about where you're expecting that growth to happen. Oh, I made a big drip. What a pain. No way. That's inspiration. Check it out. There's no way I would have such a cool branch without making that crazy little mistake. Now watch this one get a little bit thicker. If you blow really hard in one spot, you might watch a whole bunch of branches start to grow. Soon you will have a beautiful, beautiful looking tree like this. And you might start to learn that if you blow at certain strengths, at certain angles, and certain angles at certain strengths, you will start to develop maybe a look that you like, almost like pruning or shaping a beautiful hedge or plant. Well, go ahead and let this dry, and then we'll see how we can amplify it further and really bring forth the beautiful, blossoming beauty of your plant. Well, welcome back, friends. The painting is now dry, and as you see, I got a little carried away. I came back and worked on it a bit. I added a little bit more paint. I blew it. I experimented with different amount of force as well as different directions, and got a pretty bristly looking tree here now. Pretty nice. And I used dark green for mine, but maybe you used something like brown or black or maybe a brownish red or a mahogany. Hey? Well, maybe you want to know how to give this tree some foliage, or maybe with all that fruit talk we've been doing, a little bit of fruit as well. Well, as you can see, I brought my paint back. I also have a smaller brush. I also have a palette with some paint for a fruit. So feel free to go get yourself any other brushes you might like, any other paint you might like, and then let's get busy. All right, now something else I did. I took that same green paint that I used for the trunk and I added some white and I added some yellow to it. It made it a little more springy, like fresh foliage on a tree in spring. And hey, it's sort of spring, so let's go with it. I added a little bit more water just to make sure to keep that ratio of about 50-50. And hey, maybe you found 50-50 works for you, or maybe you like 30-70 or 60-40. Anyway, find your happy medium. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my smaller brush here. I'm going to dip it into some water. I'm going to get some paint on it. Now, this part can get a bit messy, so if you're a little bit worried about having a mess with this technique I'm about to show you, which will have us splattering a little bit of paint, you might want to make sure you're on a surface that isn't delicate or valuable. You're also welcome to put some paper down underneath, but we're not going to be throwing the paint across, so you should be okay. Get a good amount of paint on there. Nice and globby, so much that it almost is about to fall, but it's not going to. You'll see. We're going to come up close and we're going to tap the brush like so to create speckled leaves. Oh, did you see that one just jump off? Got to be careful with how you're tapping it, but if you give it a few practice goes, maybe on a scrap piece of paper first to get the hang of it, you too can have wonderfully directional splatters that do not shoot all over your house. Look at that. And so my whole mission here is to get this pretty busy with beautiful leaves. So I'm going to grab a little bit more paint. And if I'm feeling like this paint is too thick, I'll add a little more water. If I'm feeling like it's a bit too liquidy, I might add a little more paint. Although be careful with that. You might get into this whole adding paint and adding water and well, with experiments we always do learn, but there's also time to consider. All right, gonna get some more leaves on here. Little ones, big ones, ones grouped together. And if you go outside and look at some trees, and I would definitely always recommend looking at something before you paint or draw it, you'll see how leaves sort of group together. We might think of this big bit of foliage on the top of a tree as just a big lump of leaves, but it's a bit more than that. Leaves do have certain patterns, tree by tree, that they grow. Ooh, there's a good clump of leaves there. All right. And you'll find that there's certain ways you can tap that'll give you smaller splatters and certain ways you can tap that will give you bigger splatters. Now, you can let this dry for a bit, and then you can come back with a different color, maybe slightly more yellow or more white or more red or something. You can get a pretty nice layered effect of leaves as you let them dry. But I'm going to show you that. I'm also going to hide some apples on this tree. Did you know it was an apple tree? Well, I guess it could be a cherry tree. You know, if you go driving out past those orchards, you might notice those trees look sort of similar at first until all those beautiful flowers and leaves come out, and then, of course, that fruit. For the apples, though, I'm going to use a fairly dry brush. Not completely dry, but fairly dry because I want that nice point on the brush there. I'm going to get a little bit of paint on there, and I'm going to choose a spot for a nice apple to go. How about one right there? And you can also do this part with colored pencils too, although don't do it while you have the wet paint on there. Put one right here. And I have to be careful right now because I do have these wet leaves, and if I get the wet red paint and the wet green paint together, they may start to blend. All right, well, I'm going to get some more apples on here, and then I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to show you that layering technique I was talking about. I'm going to put some lighter colored leaves on top of these darker colored leaves to give it a really nice effect, sort of hide those apples as the treasures that they are. Whew-wee. Every time we do one of those time traveling things, it sort of gives me a little bit of the spins, you know what I mean? Well, anyway, here in this present time, my painting is now pretty much dry. I do see one leaf that's a little wet, but it should be okay. Generally, almost everything is dry, and that is important. If I was going to go back in with colored pencils and draw a bird sitting there, or you know, maybe some very special leaves or seeds or fruits, I wouldn't want to make a big mess with the wet paint. Just, it's difficult. So give it time to dry. Be patient. There's lots of other cool things that you can do while you're waiting. So I also, in the meantime, mixed up another shade of paint. And you can see this is much lighter than any of the other ones I used. I mixed in more yellow, more white. You know, leaves aren't always green. Experiment. Just because everybody's doing the green leaf thing doesn't mean there's a couple out there doing the purple leaf thing or the red leaf thing or even maybe, I don't know, the brown leaf thing. Anyway, let's go ahead and drip some more leaves on. Let's see what it looks like. So this shade of green is a bit lighter than what I put underneath. So it's going to give us a little bit more of a dimensional effect. Having darker leaves underneath means, well, a little less light is getting through to those, and the ones on the top with the lighter green are getting a bit more. Good for them, but also good for us because it makes things look a little more dimensional and helps them pop out. You may begin to find that having less paint on your brush than you might have thought is actually a huge advantage because it makes those leaves you're splattering down tinier and maybe more varied. You're getting some that go in a little bit of a direction so they have a little bit of a maybe leaf shape to them. And look at how our beautiful succulent, juicy apples are getting hidden like treasures among the leaves. They truly are treasures, those apples. The great John Chapman once said, "An apple a day keeps the doctor away." But he should have just said, "An apple a day keeps you very happy because they're so delicious, crunchy, and sweet." Okay. Maybe just a couple more, and I think we'll call it done. So again, you're being gentle with this. Don't get too rough with it. And let it grow. You're not out there telling the tree how to do its thing. Let it grow. Have some fun with it. Try some different shapes. Try different amounts of paint. Try different colors. You know what? Even try not waiting until it's completely dry and then dropping some of those leaves on there. It might have a cool effect. Either way, you should end up with something gorgeous that you can give now to a friend. I'll tell you, if you did that tree lesson with me early in the year, taking a colored pencil and doing a little bit of shading over there might give it a nice bark effect. There's a lot of things you can do with art, and any of the other skills and tools you have, you can integrate into this. Well, friends, I hope you've grown a bit today, and maybe splattered a bit today. But I'll see you again soon for another fantastic art lesson. Goodbye for now.